All right, guys, so what I want to do now is a small face, and I want to introduce our next assignment, which is going to be drawing 8 small faces for practice using reference photos. So these are some that I've just done as demos, and some of them are unfinished, but a lot of these are by request for different hairstyles, all from reference photos. Now, what I want to point out is that these are all the height that we just did, okay, 1 3/8 inches from top of the head to the chin. Okay, now it might be a little bit higher if the hairstyle is sticking up above, but what I recommend you do for this assignment is go ahead and rule out your 1 3/8 inch high head. Then put a line down the center so that your eyes will fall where they belong, which we'll review that in just a second. But that gets you a starting point so that you can go ahead and put your faces in and you don't have to worry about getting everything in a funky location. I will say when people do this assignment, sometimes people lose a point because they're not following proper face proportions. For example, they tend to put the eyes too high. They tend to put the mouth too low. Okay, those are, I would say, the two things people get funny on this is they keep the eyes too high and they keep the mouth too low. Now, I want you guys to use reference photos for your 8 faces. So you're going to need 8 reference photos. Please look for photos that have different face shapes, different hairstyles, all of it. We want to kind of play around and, experience the variety of human faces. Tomorrow we're going to do profiles, so I'll show you profile faces, and if you want to incorporate a couple of profile faces, you can. I have a couple here. I'll show you guys some other ones. These were some profile faces from reference photos. We'll be doing that officially tomorrow. I have a couple other ones here. These ones are kind of fun. This was fun, finger waves, hairstyles for people. Big curly hair is, to me, it's a little bit more hard to teach how to do that versus like a straight hairstyle is pretty easy to teach. And then super textured hair like an afro is actually really easy to draw, in my opinion. And you can see I've got a nice variety of different hairstyles here. And if any of those inspire you, you could look for things like that. I'll show you too, I found this old demo too, where I am certain this had to be a reference photo. I would never think to draw hair like that without a reference photo, but I really enjoyed doing it. And some other hairstyles as well. And this one, maybe I'll finish this one for you guys because this one is a hairstyle sometimes people request that can be a little harder to draw. Okay, but anyway, let's get back to our faces. So what I want to talk to everybody about right now is drawing small faces, because you do need to add a small face to your assignment that you're turning in here. Okay, we did a bigger face, where we did kind of a double height face going from one line up to this line with the eyes in the middle. So now we're going to do our little tiny face, and make sure I'm zoomed in here, and I'm going to go ahead and erase all these little robot eyes. I drew this in here to show you guys that one eye width is approximately the spacing between the two eyes, and there's about half an eye on the outsides of the eyes. Now, as we saw when I drew her face, based on the reference photo, did have more space in between the eyes. That is appropriate for her face. As I'm sitting here doing this, I'm like wanting to correct things on her. But anyway, let's move on. So I'm going to go ahead and on this face, I will lightly rough in my eye level. That's the first thing I always and forever will do, and it's going to be halfway. Okay, look at your reference photo. Occasionally you will find women's faces where the eyes are higher or lower, but if you put them lower, they tend to look like children, and if you put them higher, it makes them look more masculine. Okay, so there's kind of a balance right in between. Next, I want to put the brow level. So as we talked about in the previous video, the brow is just a little bit above the eyes. And let me actually get a reference photo so I'm not making this up as I go along. Who am I feeling like? Maybe we'll do her face today. Okay. So we've got the brow just a little bit above the eye level. We've got from brow to chin, the next thing I mark is the bottom of the nose, which should be halfway from here to here, halfway from the brow to the chin. That's the bottom of the nose. The next thing we mark is the opening of the mouth, which is 1/3 of the way from the nose to the chin. As I just mentioned, people tend to put the mouth too low. If you put your mouth too low, your lady is going to look older and a little bit weary, tired. and it's going to age her. So we're going to make sure that that stays lower. I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to switch to a mechanical pencil for this because I'm going to be able to get better detail. When I draw the opening of the mouth, the reason it's got to be higher, closer to the nose, is because we need room for a chin and we need room for a lower lip, okay? Oh, do I have lead? I do not have lead. What have I got here? My jar full of stuff. There's one. I got one here. Okay. So we need room for a chin. We need room for a lower lip. Now, when I draw the mouth, I look at what shape the mouth is actually making, and I see if I can capture that shape. In a minute, I'll draw in the upper lip and the lower lip, but I always look to see the mouth opening. What shape is that doing first? Okay. Back up to the eyes. The eyes, the colored part of the eye is going to be on the circle. Okay, so I approach it like this. I draw the circle, and then I look and say, okay, inner corner, outer corner, are they even with each other, or is one a little higher than the other? Hers are pretty even. So I'll say inner corner, outer corner, outer corner, and then I stop. Okay, once I've drawn those little dots for my inner corner and my outer corner, that's where I have determined the width of my eyes, and I stop and I say, okay, the distance between, is it about one eye width, and is that true to my reference photo? For her, yeah, she also has a little bit extra space in between. So you also want to look at the whites of the eyes and see if there's more white on the outside or the inside of the eye. Be careful with faces that are slightly turned. I was going to draw her, but her face is very slightly turned. Do you guys see it? If somebody turns their face even the littlest bit, it makes the drawing a whole lot more difficult. So we'll go with her. She's straightforward looking at us. All right, so I'm going to start to put in the eye. I'm going to draw the upper eyelid. It cuts off the circle of her colored part of her eye, and the lower eyelid comes right below. And then we'll do the other side as best I can. This is always the hardest part for me. I don't know why I always start with this eye and then I try to make this eye match. Never quite get it right, but I can usually get it good enough. Okay, well, I'm not loving it, but let's go with it for now. I think I made it a little too big. These are tiny faces, which on one hand is nice because it means that you don't have to do as much detail. But on the other hand, it's a little tricky because you're pressed for space. Okay, her brows. She's got really lovely brows. They start a little bit lower and then they arch up. The arch is about even with this outer part of her eye. So I'll make sure I arch up out there and then come down. And let me do the other side. And I'm just kind of penciling it in right now, okay? I'm not pressing too hard because I don't want to do something that I can't erase. This is the layout portion of the drawing where everything's kind of up for grabs. I very well may need to adjust things in a minute. All right, now down to the nose. I've got some nostrils that I can see. I see a little bit of an outline here. It's very similar to the one I just did. Hang on, I don't love it. Nostril. Force yourself to look at what you're seeing, okay? Do you see a shape at the bottom of the nose? Do you really see a nostril outline? Force yourself to look at what you're seeing. It really means overriding what your brain assumes and trusting your eyes. And we don't do that. We truly don't. We, I think, live in a world where if we let our eyes see everything all the time, it would be extremely overwhelming. Okay, so I drew in her upper lip, and now I'm starting to put in her lower lip, and I'm realizing I haven't adjusted her face contours yet. Okay, so I just drew a generic head shape. So let me come in here and see if I can just get her face shape a little bit nicer. She's got some nice cheekbones that are coming down to a jawline. So out here is her mouth, and then we've got a really nice jaw shape that turns the corner right below there. See if I can try to capture this. This is, I feel like, one of my weak spots in drawing is trying to get that face shape really nice. I'll get something that looks fine, but does it look like the person? Not always. Usually not. But it looks nice. So that, fine. I'm not gonna overthink it, because usually I've had a few projects where I have been asked to draw the actual person who's gonna be wearing it. I used to do a lot of celebrity costumes and things. And now the ears need to go from brow down to the bottom of the nose. So I I would get these assignments where I needed to make it look like the person who was going to wear the dress or the outfit or whatever it was, which was fine, but those were harder for me. Some people are really, really good at that stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to get her hairline. In general, the forehead is about the same height as the nose, which is about the same height as the lower portion of the face. That's the thirds that kind of make us have a nice balanced face. We'll come ahead and go down here. Okay, we're getting there. At this point, I'm pretty okay with the location of everything I've done, and it's time to start adding in the details. So I'm going to really zoom in here. And what I'm going to do first is crease of the eye. She's got a very visible upper eyelid, and her upper eyelid appears to connect at the inner corner. Appears to connect at the inner corner. And then she's got really nice dark lashes, so I'm going to darken that up, and I'll darken up the underneath part too. Okay, this eyeball is a little crooked. Par for the course for me. See if I can scoot it over a little bit more. Okay, darken up that outer eyelid. I've got a glare as I'm trying to draw this. I'm trying to see my reference photo. Keep your reference photo handy, you guys. You need to be looking at that photo as much as you're looking at your drawing. And I am having trouble seeing it because of the glare, so I'm just lifting it up right now so I can see it better. I can start filling in her eyebrows a little bit more now that I'm confident that they're going to be okay to stay where they're at. Let me darken up the insides of her eyes, leaving a little white highlight. And she does have a little bit of a shadow under her eye right there, and a little bit here. My students were talking about how to smize earlier this morning. It was kind of funny listening to them. And she's got a little smize going on. Okay, and now she looks really tired, right? Because I put those shadows in, but I haven't done anything else. So don't worry, we're going to get to the rest of it. If you want to switch to a drawing pencil for the shading portion, absolutely, please do it. I'm kind of enjoying my mechanical pencil right now, so I'm going to stay with this for a little longer. I am going to pick up, though, some lead. I want some softer lead for my mechanical pencil, because I feel like a lot of times when you buy them, they come with a harder lead, and I like a softer lead for drawing. Okay, let's see what we can do up in here. Shading. You can notice again, guys, under the lower lip is really shadowy, and what's not shaded is right here. So many people want to outline the lips. If she's wearing lipstick, you might see an outline on the lips. Or lip liner or something, you might see an outline on the lips. But guys, look at your reference photo. Ask yourself, are you really seeing an outline on the lips, or do you just assume that it's there? Is your brain telling you that something should be there and you're wanting to put it, or is it actually there? Okay, a little shading down the nose on this side, but a lot of shading right here. Very frequently, I'll see a shadow that comes right from the brow on a bit of an angle, and then a bit of a different angle as we work our way down the nose. So I'm seeing that on her. I'm going to go ahead and capture that. And I'm going to go ahead and go down the nose. Now, I can tell I've made her eyes bigger than they actually are on her photo. And you know what? I'm okay with that. If you're going to make the eyes for your women a little too big, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think that'll just make them look a little bit more feminine. If you want to erase away your center line, your markings, all that stuff, fine with me. But you'll notice if you look back at my old demos, I scanned some of them in for you guys to reference. You're going to see that I just leave that stuff. I don't mind seeing it, unless what I'm creating is supposed to be a finished drawing for some purpose. If it's just me like working out proportions and whatnot, I don't mind leaving that stuff. So you can erase those lines or you can get rid of them. Her forehead is fairly rounded. As we talk about shading, female faces in general are really quite soft, quite rounded. So you're going to see these shadows not making harsh lines. You kind of need to really get your blending on point so that you can blend these shadows around and wrap around the contours of the face. So I'm going to wrap around right here under her chin, under her cheek, and try to work my way under her chin. A lot of times if you look closely too, you'll see a tiny bit of reflected light on the shadow side of the face where light is bouncing back at it, very similar to how we drew our shapes early on in the class. And we saw those little reflected lights. If you're able to capture it, it's one of those things that just kind of makes a drawing, takes it to the next level.
Other little things I love to capture is the little bit of highlight above the upper lip. If you see that, see if you can capture it. It requires a really sharp pencil, but it's kind of nice to catch that. And just work my way down. Okay, now I feel like I might have to get a drawing pencil in a minute and see if I can soften my shadows a tiny bit. These are tiny little faces. Okay, I'm going to darken this a little bit more. As everything starts to get darker throughout the face, I find myself working my way back around and deepening up shadows I started with. At first they look too dark, but then once everything else starts to fall into place, they start to need a little bit of extra darkness. Okay, let me come in and get some details in her ears. I won't do much, but just something so that they don't look like there's nothing there. Okay, does it look like her? No, but it looks like a person who looks like a woman. I'll take it. That'll work. That'll work for me. Okay, now for the hair. She's got, wait, hang on a sec. Let me get a little more shading on this side of her forehead. And yeah, do your best with the shading. But some of you guys have a really beautiful touch when you're doing your shading, and I love to see it. I am going to do, we're at 16 minutes, I'm going to do 2 more things. I'm going to put some hair, and then I'm going to actually I'll do this first. I'm going to take a very, very sharp 4B, and I'm going to pop my darkest shadows, okay? I never walk away from a drawing without doing this, because this is how, when you look at it from across the room, you're going to know what you're looking at. Without this, sometimes it looks a little bit faded. So just take a minute, squint at your drawing, decide what are the darkest areas. Here I want to get under her chin. She has such a nice chin shape, and I don't think I really quite captured it. There we go, that's better. I like that. Okay. And just see if you need to pop some shadows just a little bit darker before you walk away from it. Okay, let's talk hair. On one hand, I don't really want to do this hair because it's really similar to the hair I just did for you guys in that previous video. So let me see if I can mixy-matchy. I'm going to pause this, see if I can find another hair. Okay, I really don't have another good, I should have pulled some good hair photos. I'm liking her braids. I could show you guys how to do braids. Maybe I'll do that. But because all these other ones are just kind of straight hair, I didn't realize that I wasn't finding enough hair variety. All right, we'll steal her hair and put it on this lady's face. Okay, so what we're gonna do is let's draw in the hair wrap that she's got going on here. So I'll just outline that. That's gonna give some extra width to her head and something like that. Oh, let me switch pencils. Let me get myself back to an HB. Oops, what am I doing? Here's my HB. Okay. And I'm going to just see if I can capture that wrap. It doesn't have to be perfect because I can't even tell quite where the folds are happening, but something like that. And then let's put in, and I can tell this is wanting to go up high over her head. So we'll do that. And okay, next what I'm going to do is pop in these braids. Oh, she needs earrings, doesn't she? Let's put some earrings on her. We'll get these exact earrings, which I'm kind of loving. We'll leave those light because the hair is going to be dark behind. That's kind of fun. Okay, braids. So when I approach hair, the first thing I do is get myself an overall shape. Okay, so I'm going to get the overall silhouette. We'll give it like that. And then I think, now she's turned to the side, so we don't see anything on the side, but for her, let me just add in some hair on the side. Maybe I don't want that. I think it looks better if it's just on one side. Okay, no, I'm going to leave it on one side. Okay, now, they're braids. So if you guys can see, can we see if it comes up on the photo? Okay, you can see it up here. Do you see the brightness? It's making a pattern, okay? When we see that pattern, we know it's a braid. So my challenge is going to be leaving a pattern of white and making that feel like a braid. So I think there's a couple different ways we can approach this. I'm going to go ahead and outline the braids. I'll keep a couple right up here that are going to be ones I try to draw really carefully. And then the other ones are going to start to fall into shadow, and we won't have to be as precise with those ones, okay? And down here underneath, this is just going to be really dark, so I'm not going to overthink that part. Now, for the ones where I want to get them really more detailed, I'm going to go ahead and take each one. Okay, let's deal with this one first. I'm going to shade the underside, leaving the top a little brighter. It's almost like right now it's a spaghetti, okay? It's not a braid yet, it's just a spaghetti. Here's the next one. Get one side and leave the other side bright. Now, there's a little bit of a conflict here because I have a face that was lit from the right, but I think this can still work because I was thinking like what side of the braid should be shadowed. Okay, so I've got these kind of tubular shapes. I don't want them to be too perfect. Let me make this one dip behind that one. Let me make, like I want them to kind of be a little bit imperfect. Okay, now I need to get that pattern of light and dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just darken up by making a little row of dots. And then I'm going to bump up the other side, okay? Because the braid's going to be a little bumpy on top, and put a little shading, okay? I kind of think if I do more of that, that's going to read like a braid. So let me get this one. I'm going to put a row of dots because by doing a row of dots, I'm leaving light in a pattern. And I'm going to wiggle the other edge of that spaghetti so it doesn't feel like a tube anymore. Here's this one, row of dots. There's other ways to do this too. You know, I could be drawing kind of like a wiggle shape, and I could be doing my dots in more of a pattern. You can be as precise as you want with this, but I think the challenge is getting the vibe of something without overworking it, without overly fussing on it. So I think that, and then this, and that might be enough, guys. Having just that up here to communicate that what we're dealing with is some braids. I'll put a couple more down here. So just see I bumped out the silhouette. And now I'm going to dot in some dark so that I can leave a pattern of white on the paper. Okay, do I need this other one out here? No, I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, I will come back to that, but let me first come underneath, and I'm going to just darken up under here. So we know that they're sort of braid-like, so I'll try to keep showing that there's some rows, but not too perfect. I don't want them too perfect. And I'm leaving the earring light color. And we'll work our way down here. Okay. And I'm going to keep darkening this up because this area is in shadow. I don't think we need a ton more detail in there. I'm just going to get it really pretty dark. Okay. I will give my silhouette a little bit more bumpiness here. Mark some little lines that suggest that we're seeing another little braid right there. And then I'm just going to try to blend between here and here. I'm going to try to do some combination of what we just talked about so that we can sense that there's some braids. Darken her ear. Would her ear be visible? I feel like this hair wrap would maybe cover part of it. And I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put some little rows of dots so that we can see that there's something, those really nice precise braids happening under here. Okay, let me come back to the earring. We'll add a little bit of feathery fringiness there. Shade underneath. Okay, and I like it. I think she's kind of pretty. Okay, let me put some designs on her head wrap because I cannot not do that. And I can just kind of make it up a little design here. Fun. Are we done? Maybe we're done. Maybe we're done, guys. Maybe we're done. Okay, so finish up a face on your lady. And then you know now how to do the assignment with the small faces. I think she needs a little hair under here, which isn't due for a couple of days. So you have a little time on that one. And if anybody has any questions for me, just send me a message. But I'm excited to be onto the women's wear. I think we've gotten in some really good practice with our children's collection so that now what you guys create, I think you'll be really excited about. I'm very excited to see what you guys are doing. Okay, so small faces. Oh, one more thing. I will publish this in Canvas, but if you guys want, I was thinking of doing an extra credit assignment. I just did this from eyes, okay? In a lot of drawing classes, they will have you just do eyes.
forever for like a long time. I get a little bit bored of it, but I do think it's really good practice. So in terms of time, I don't know that we've got the time to spend doing a ton of eyes, especially because when we do our fashion illustrations, usually these faces are quite small so we can fit the figure on the page. But if you guys wanted to do for extra credit some eyes from reference photos, I would be in full support of that because it really is a good way to notice how very different each of our faces are. So I'll publish that assignment so you guys can do that. Okay, thanks. Sorry this video got a little long. See you guys soon.